"Security, remove that woman before she disturbs our real guests." The words hit the air like a slap, echoing off the marble walls of the Empire Regent's Grand Lobby in Manhattan. It was just after 10 a.m., the chandeliers blazed with light, and the scent of polished wood and fresh lilies lingered in the air. Guests in tailored suits and designer dresses froze mid-conversation, turning toward the commotion at the entrance. Naomi Carter stood there, a striking black woman in her mid-30s, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit and heels sharp enough to cut glass. Her posture radiated confidence, but her hands were still, her expression calm, too calm. In her right hand, she held a black leather portfolio pressed lightly against her hip. Victoria Hale, the front desk manager, stood several feet away with her arms folded and chin raised, looking down her nose at Naomi as though she were something tracked in from the street. Her voice rose again, louder this time, for the benefit of the audience forming around them. "I've worked luxury hospitality for 15 years. I can spot someone who doesn't belong from across the room." A murmur ran through the lobby. Phones appeared in every direction, cameras ready, as if the scene unfolding was made for social media. The young man near the concierge desk began live streaming to TikTok, the viewer count ticking upward, 427, 902, 1,400. Naomi didn't flinch. She simply glanced at the slim platinum watch on her wrist. 12 minutes until my appointment upstairs, she said, her voice low but clear. Victoria's lips curled into a smirk. "The only appointment you have is with the sidewalk outside." Two security guards emerged from behind a marble column, their hands resting casually near their tasers. Guests whispered, some with curiosity, some with approval, others with that particular smugness that comes from believing they're witnessing order being restored. And yet, something about Naomi's stillness didn't fit the script. She didn't look lost. She didn't look intimidated. She looked ready. Before the morning was over, everyone in that lobby, every guest, every staff member, and tens of thousands watching online, would learn exactly who Naomi Carter was. And they would never forget it. The murmur in the lobby thickened into a low hum, the kind that builds right before a storm breaks. Guests adjusted their phones for better angles, some whispering commentary for their live stream audiences. Every eye was locked on Naomi Carter and the woman blocking her path. Victoria Hale took a deliberate step forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a gavel striking a bench. Her voice carried, sharp and clear. "Ma'am, you need to understand something. This is a private establishment. We have standards here. People dressed in knockoff designer suits don't waltz into the Empire Regent expecting access to our executive floors." A few guests chuckled under their breath. One older gentleman in a tailored navy blazer muttered, "Finally, someone's keeping the place classy." Another woman, clutching a Louis Vuitton tote, nodded in agreement. Naomi stood unmoved. "Standards," she said evenly, "should begin with how you treat people." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She turned her head just enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. "I'm treating you exactly as your behavior suggests. You showed up unannounced. No reservation. No meeting on record. No verification of who you are. That is behavior that does not belong here." Her words were designed to humiliate, and they hit their mark with the watching crowd. The live stream audience exploded. Comments scrolled so fast the young man holding his phone couldn't read them all. "Call the news," one read. Another, "This is straight racism." From behind, two uniformed security guards moved into position, forming a subtle wall between Naomi and the bank of elevators that led to the upper floors. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a shaved head, spoke into his radio. "Code yellow in the main lobby. Possible trespasser. Need additional eyes." Naomi glanced at her watch again, almost casually. 10 minutes. Victoria tilted her head, her tone dripping with mockery. 10 minutes until what? Until you're escorted out the front door? Or should we be polite and take you out the service entrance? The crowd shifted, creating a semicircle around the standoff. The tension in the air was almost physical. Naomi's calm presence seemed at odds with the growing hostility surrounding her. Every second was being captured, every angle streamed, every word preserved for an audience that was multiplying by the minute. What no one realized yet, not Victoria, not the guards, not the smug guests, was that each passing minute was pushing this moment toward a reveal so sharp, so complete, it would cut through the marble and crystal facade of the Empire Regent like glass. And Naomi Carter, still and steady in the center of it all, seemed to know exactly when that cut would come. The heavy glass doors at the far end of the lobby swung open, letting in a gust of cool October air. Heads turned as a tall man in a tailored gray suit strode in, his polished shoes tapping against the marble like a metronome. Michael Stanton, the general manager of the Empire Regent, had arrived. His presence carried the practiced authority of someone used to settling disputes with a single look. The crowd parted just enough for him to step forward, his eyes sweeping over the scene. They lingered on Victoria Hale for a moment, then shifted to Naomi Carter, taking in the immaculate suit, the leather portfolio, the calm but unyielding stance. "What's going on here?" Stanton's voice was deep, steady, but edged with impatience. Victoria straightened immediately, her tone shifting into professional performance mode. "Mr. Stanton, this woman entered the lobby without authorization. She has no reservation, no meeting on record, and she refuses to leave. I've explained our policies, but she insists she has business upstairs." Stanton turned his full attention to Naomi, his expression somewhere between suspicion and irritation. "Ma'am, I'm Michael Stanton, general manager of this property. I understand there's been some confusion about your reason for being here. Unfortunately, we don't allow access to our executive floors without clearance in our system. And you're not in our system." The words landed like a quiet verdict. A murmur of approval passed through the surrounding guests. Several nodded, as if this confirmed what they had already assumed. Naomi met his gaze without flinching. "Mr. Stanton, I suggest you verify my appointment before you make an irreversible mistake." The phrase made him pause for half a second, but he recovered quickly. "There's no mistake here. We have strict security protocols for a reason. If you can't provide immediate proof of your meeting, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Security will escort you out." From the corner of the lobby, the young man with the live stream whispered into his phone, "The general manager's here. This is about to get ugly." Viewers climbed past 9,000. Comments lit up the feed. "She's too calm. Something's coming." Naomi glanced at her watch again. 8 minutes, she said softly. Stanton's jaw tightened. 8 minutes until what? Naomi didn't answer. She simply stood her ground, her portfolio still tucked under her arm like a sealed envelope holding the ending no one else could see. The atmosphere in the lobby thickened, as if the very air had weight. Michael Stanton gave a quick nod to the two security guards flanking Naomi. One of them pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Unit 1 to base. Confirm code yellow. Request immediate police presence. Possible trespasser refusing to comply." The words were deliberate and loud enough for the surrounding guests to hear. A few people in the crowd exchanged knowing looks, as if the problem had finally been handled. Others raised their phones higher, angling for the best shot of the unfolding confrontation. Naomi stood in the center of it all, steady as stone. She checked her watch again and spoke with the same quiet calm that had unnerved the sharper observers. 7 minutes. Victoria's voice cut through the tension like a blade. 7 minutes until what? Until NYPD walks you out of here? You're embarrassing yourself, and frankly, you're wasting everyone's time. Her words landed with a mix of mockery and finality. Guests nearby chuckled, while the live stream audience soared past 15,000. Comments poured in. "This woman is way too calm. Feels like a setup. Plot twist incoming." The elevator chimes sounded from across the lobby, but no one looked. All eyes were locked on the small circle that had formed around Naomi. The guards stepped closer, their shadows overlapping hers. Stanton moved in, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I'm giving you one last chance to leave voluntarily. If you force me to have you removed, it won't end well for you." Naomi's eyes didn't waver. "What's about to end badly," she replied evenly, "is your assumption that you know who I am." Stanton straightened, his patience gone. "Ma'am, you have no authority here. You are not in our records. And in less than 5 minutes, the police will arrive to make that clear." The radio on the guard's belt crackled. "Unit 2 here. NYPD en route. ETA 4 minutes." The announcement rippled through the crowd, tightening the tension like a drawn bowstring. Naomi adjusted her stance, the faintest hint of a smile touching her lips. "Then we have just enough time," she said softly, "for everyone here to see the truth." The words puzzled the onlookers, but they carried a confidence that made more than a few people lower their phones just slightly, wondering if they were about to capture something they had never seen before. and Naomi Carter, still framed by marble columns and crystal light, looked every bit like someone holding a checkmate no one else had recognized yet. The lobby had gone so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the chandelier lights above. Every guest, every employee, and every live stream viewer felt the moment closing in. Naomi Carter shifted the leather portfolio from under her arm and set it gently on the marble reception counter. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Mr. Stanton, Ms. Hale, I am going to give you exactly one opportunity to correct the mistake you've made in the last 15 minutes. Victoria crossed her arms. "The only mistake here is you thinking you can bluff your way into a place like this." Naomi didn't respond to the jab. Instead, she unfastened the brass clasp on her portfolio and slid out a thick cream-colored document. The paper caught the chandelier light, revealing embossed corporate seals and multiple signatures in deep blue ink. She placed it face down on the counter and looked directly at Stanton. "You might want to read this before you continue." Stanton stepped forward with the confidence of someone expecting a fake business card or forged letter. He flipped the document over. His eyes hit the bold header first. Carter Hospitality Group, controlling interest acquisition of the Empire Regent Hotel. The confident smirk drained from his face as he scanned the lines beneath. Effective this morning, Carter Hospitality Group had acquired a 74% controlling interest in the Empire Regent through a finalized corporate buyout. The board meeting to announce the change in leadership was scheduled for 3 o'clock that afternoon, in the penthouse boardroom. The very meeting Naomi had referenced all along. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The live stream chat exploded. "She owns it. Holy hell, plot twist of the year. Fire them all." Naomi spoke evenly, her tone measured but impossible to ignore. "As of 9 o'clock this morning, I am the majority owner of this property. Which means, Mr. Stanton, you are standing in my lobby, in my hotel, telling me I have no right to be here." Victoria's face flushed red, but Stanton's complexion had gone pale. He glanced from the document to Naomi, then to the ring of phones recording every second. His voice cracked when he tried to speak. That can't be." Naomi slid a second document from her portfolio and placed it beside the first. "This," she said, "is the official notice to all department heads, effective immediately. I intended to deliver it after my meeting, but given the circumstances, we'll handle it now." And just like that, the balance of power in the Empire Regent shifted in a single, irreversible breath. The document on the counter seemed to radiate its own gravity. No one in the lobby moved. The soft hum of camera phones filled the silence. Naomi Carter rested one hand lightly on the portfolio, her gaze sweeping over the crowd before landing back on Michael Stanton. "You assumed I was here to sneak into your hotel," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "You assumed that because of how I look. What you didn't bother to do was verify who I am or why I'm here. And now, every person in this lobby has witnessed the result of that decision." Stanton's Adam's apple bobbed. He tried to respond, but Naomi was already sliding out another folder. She flipped it open to reveal several pages clipped together, each bearing the Empire Regent letterhead. "These," she continued, "are internal reports and legal settlements tied to your tenure as general manager. 2 separate discrimination complaints in the last 5 years, both settled quietly, both costing this property hundreds of thousands of dollars. Both swept under the rug." The live stream audience went wild. Comments scrolled faster than anyone could read them. "She came with receipts. Game over. This guy is done." Victoria took a half step back, her expression shifting from defiance to panic. Naomi turned her attention toward her. "And you, Ms. Hale. Multiple guest complaints for hostile treatment at check-in. Consistent targeting of guests based on appearance. Do you remember the family you escorted out last December because you decided they didn't look like they belonged here? That incident alone cost the hotel a major corporate account." Victoria's lips parted, but no words came. Naomi didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her tone carried the weight of absolute authority. "This is no longer your hotel to run. As of this morning, your employment here is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out after we finish this conversation." A ripple of shock moved through the lobby. Guests who had moments ago smirked in agreement with Stanton and Hale now avoided their eyes. The security guards, still standing nearby, shifted their stance, uncertain whether they should follow their old orders or their new owners. Naomi turned back to Stanton. You'll remain on the property for the next 30 minutes to meet with my legal team upstairs. After that, you will be escorted off these premises, and your access to all company systems will be revoked. Consider this your final act as general manager." It was no longer a standoff. It was a dismantling, swift, precise, and undeniable. The people who had tried to humiliate Naomi Carter were now standing in the ruins of their own authority. The echo of Naomi Carter's words still hung in the marble lobby when she closed her portfolio and turned toward the private elevator. Without another glance at Stanton or Hale, she stepped inside, flanked by one of her attorneys and a quiet assistant carrying a slim laptop case. As the doors closed, the shift in atmosphere was palpable. Downstairs, guests whispered in low voices, replaying what they had just witnessed. Upstairs, on the penthouse level, another kind of theater was about to begin. When the elevator opened, Naomi stepped into the hushed luxury of the executive floor. Thick carpet muted her footsteps as she approached a pair of frosted glass doors marked boardroom. A receptionist quickly stood, eyes widening in recognition from the news alerts already circulating online. She opened the doors without a word. Inside, a long mahogany table stretched beneath recessed lighting. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of Manhattan skyline, but every board member's eyes were fixed on Naomi. There were 7 of them, each with a tablet or folder in front of them, and each wearing an expression that mixed curiosity, discomfort, and urgency. Margaret Ellison, chair of the board, spoke first. "Miss Carter, we were beginning to worry. Your appointment was for this afternoon. We didn't expect." Naomi set her portfolio on the table, her tone even but unyielding. "Circumstances changed. The past 20 minutes downstairs are now relevant to this meeting, and to the future of this property." A low murmur moved around the table. She continued without pause. "The general manager and front desk manager attempted to remove me from my own hotel. Not because of protocol. Not because of a genuine security concern. But because they made an assumption about me based solely on appearance." One of the older board members, Robert Hayes, shifted in his seat. "Is this going to become public?" "It already is," Naomi said, sliding a tablet across the table. On its screen, a live stream replay showed Stanton and Hale confronting her in the lobby, the viewer count in the corner climbing past 40,000. "This is circulating online in real time. By now, our guests, our partners, and our competitors have all seen it." Silence gripped the room. Naomi opened her portfolio again and laid out a single sheet with bullet-pointed figures. Projected brand damage, 7 to 10 million over the next year if unaddressed. Risk of civil rights litigation. Sigh. Investor confidence, dropping as we speak. If you think this is only a PR problem, you're wrong. It's a structural one. Margaret leaned forward, her tone careful. "And your recommendation?" Naomi met her gaze. "We address it at the root. Immediate terminations, systemic reform, and a public commitment to change, starting now." Naomi Carter didn't sit down. She remained standing at the head of the table, one hand resting on the back of a leather chair, the other holding the portfolio that had just changed the trajectory of the Empire Regent. Her voice carried the same steady authority that had silenced the lobby. "Effective immediately," she began, "Michael Stanton and Victoria Hale are relieved of their positions. Termination for cause. No severance. No continuation of benefits. Their access to all hotel systems is to be revoked within the next 30 minutes." The statement landed like a gavel strike. Robert Hayes opened his mouth as if to object, but Naomi's eyes met his, and whatever words he had vanished before they left his throat. Margaret Ellison leaned back, assessing Naomi with a mix of caution and respect. "You're certain this is the right first step?" "It's the only first step," Naomi replied. "You cannot reform a culture while leaving its worst offenders in positions of authority. If this incident is to mean anything, we need consequences that match the magnitude of the failure." She turned slightly toward the legal counsel seated near the end of the table. "Prepare the termination notices. Security will escort them off the property after a brief meeting with legal to settle procedural details. Document every step. This will be public." The attorney nodded and began typing notes into a slim laptop. Naomi shifted her focus to the 2 security officers who had been waiting quietly outside the boardroom door. She gestured for them to step in. "Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Kelly, your actions this morning followed the orders of management. I am not terminating you today. but you will both complete a certified bias awareness training program within 60 days. Successful completion will be a condition of continued employment." Rodriguez gave a small nod, the relief in his posture visible even through the formality of the moment. Kelly swallowed hard but managed a quiet, "Understood." Naomi's attention returned to the board. "This is not about optics. It's about function. Our guests and our staff must see, without question, that discriminatory behavior is incompatible with working here, and that when leadership fails, leadership is replaced." No one spoke for a moment. The room seemed to absorb the reality that the new majority owner was not easing into her role. She was redrawing the map. Naomi closed her portfolio with a decisive snap. "We will convene again in 2 hours to begin outlining the broader reforms. For now, execute these terminations and secure this property under its new leadership." Dismissed. 2 hours later, the boardroom was full again. This time, the atmosphere was different. The immediate shock of Naomi Carter's decisive actions had settled into something else, anticipation, and maybe even a little apprehension. Naomi stood at the head of the table once more, a large presentation screen glowing behind her. "We're not just addressing an incident," she began. "We're dismantling the conditions that allowed it to happen in the first place." She clicked a small remote, and the first slide appeared, Hospitality First Protocol. This policy will be implemented across all Empire Regent properties, effective immediately. It's simple. Every guest interaction begins with the assumption of legitimacy. Verification before exclusion. That means no one is removed, denied service, or challenged unless there is clear, documented cause, and that cause must be reviewed by a manager trained in bias awareness. The next slide read Mandatory Bias and Inclusion Training. Naomi's tone sharpened. Every employee, from housekeeping to the C-suite, will complete certified bias awareness and inclusion training within 60 days. No completion, no continued employment. This is not a suggestion. It's a requirement. A murmur went around the table, but Naomi pressed on. Quarterly training refreshers will follow, along with random scenario audits conducted by independent evaluators. We will track progress and publish an annual inclusion report that's available to the public. Our guests should see, in black and white, how we're living up to our commitment. She advanced to the next slide, Direct Complaint Access. Guests will now have a direct, anonymous channel to report discrimination or misconduct, bypassing local management and going straight to corporate compliance. This prevents gatekeeping and cover-ups like the ones that happened here under previous leadership. Robert Hayes raised a hand. "Do you have an estimate on what this is going to cost us?" Naomi didn't hesitate. Implementation across all properties will cost roughly $400,000 a year. The average discrimination settlement in our industry costs $800,000 to $2 million per incident. I think the math speaks for itself. She finished with a slide titled Public Commitment. "We will announce these reforms in a press release at 5 o'clock today. Full transparency. We're not burying this. We're leading with it. This incident will define us, but on our terms, not as a scandal, but as a turning point." Silence followed for a moment, then Margaret Ellison nodded slowly. "You've just changed the playbook for this entire industry." Naomi closed her presentation. "That's the idea." By the time the clock struck 5, the press release had gone live. Within minutes, it was everywhere, on news sites, in email inboxes, across social media feeds. The headline was impossible to ignore. Empire Regent Hotels implements industry-leading reforms after public discrimination incident. The statement didn't read like typical corporate spin. There was no vague language, no softening of facts. It clearly acknowledged what had happened in the lobby that morning. The majority owner of the hotel, a black woman, had been publicly confronted, humiliated, and nearly removed from her own property. It named the individuals involved, confirmed their terminations, and outlined every detail of the reform plan Naomi Carter had presented to the board. The press wasted no time. Local TV stations broke into regular programming with the story. National outlets picked it up within the hour. On cable news, commentators debated not whether the incident was wrong, that was clear, but how Naomi's swift, unapologetic response could change the way hospitality companies handle discrimination. Civil rights organizations issued statements praising the move. The National Urban League called Naomi's reforms a template for accountability in corporate America. The NAACP tweeted a thread detailing how the Hospitality First Protocol could be a model for other industries. On social media, the video of the lobby confrontation had been viewed over 12 million times by nightfall. Clips of Naomi calmly standing her ground, contrasted with the shocked faces of Stanton and Hale when the acquisition papers were revealed, dominated TikTok and Instagram Reels. The hashtag owned her own hotel trended worldwide. But the reaction wasn't just digital. By the next morning, reservations at the Empire Regent had surged. Corporate clients called to express support, with some booking entire conference packages simply because of the hotel's public stance. Families from communities that had historically felt unwelcome in luxury spaces began posting photos of themselves checking in, captioning them with, "We belong here." Inside the hotel, the atmosphere shifted almost overnight. Staff members who had once kept their heads down now stood taller, speaking openly about the need for change. Guests approached Naomi in the lobby, thanking her for what she had done, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. Reporters kept calling. Networks wanted interviews. Naomi accepted only a handful, choosing outlets that would focus on the reforms rather than the drama. When she did speak, her message was consistent. This was never just about me. It's about ensuring that no one else has to experience what I experienced in their own place of business, in their own community, or anywhere they have a right to be. 6 months had passed since the morning that forever changed the Empire Regent Hotel. Winter had given way to spring in Manhattan, and the lobby now felt different, not just in appearance, but in spirit. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandeliers still cast their warm golden light, but there was a noticeable shift in the way people moved through the space. Guests were greeted with genuine warmth, not forced formality. Staff members made eye contact, smiled, and spoke with a confidence rooted in something deeper than training. They believed in the place they worked. Naomi Carter's reforms had taken hold faster than even she anticipated. Every employee had completed the bias awareness and inclusion training. The quarterly refresher program was underway, and anonymous guest feedback channels were already producing valuable insights. Several managers who resisted the changes in the early days were quietly replaced by leaders who embraced the new culture. The results were undeniable. Revenue had risen by 25%, driven in part by new corporate accounts from companies that wanted their conferences and events associated with a hotel publicly committed to inclusion. Weekend bookings from families and international travelers surged, many of them first-time guests who said they chose the Empire Regent because of what they'd seen Naomi stand for. The media's interest hadn't faded entirely. Business journals ran features on the hotel's turnaround, while hospitality trade publications referred to the Empire Regent model when discussing best practices for diversity and accountability. Harvard Business School announced a case study based on Naomi's actions to be included in its leadership curriculum. Inside the hotel, there were small but telling changes. The front desk displayed a discreet plaque with the words, "Every guest belongs here." Training rooms had been updated with real-world scenarios, including reenactments of the lobby incident, used as teaching tools for new hires. Even the staff who had been skeptical in the beginning now admitted the difference. Rodriguez and Kelly, the security officers from that day, completed their training with high marks. Rodriguez had been promoted to head of security, and Kelly was mentoring new hires on guest relations. Both had become vocal advocates for the reforms. Naomi often walked the property without ceremony, checking in with employees and guests. She still carried the same leather portfolio, though now it was more a symbol than a necessity, a reminder of the moment she turned an attempt to push her out into the catalyst that redefined an entire brand. The Empire Regent was thriving, but more importantly, it was respected. 6 months earlier, Naomi had stood in that same lobby, calm under fire. Now, she stood in it as the architect of its revival, proof that leadership grounded in principle could change more than a business, it could change the culture that business stood on. Looking back on that morning in the lobby, Naomi Carter often said the most important part wasn't proving she owned the hotel. It wasn't even the swift firings or the industry-wide recognition that followed. The real victory, she believed, was turning a moment of blatant disrespect into a lasting framework for respect, one that would continue long after the headlines faded. Her experience carried a lesson she shared in every speech, interview, and quiet conversation with young professionals. Never let someone else's assumptions define your worth. People will judge you in seconds, by your clothes, your skin color, your accent, even your posture. You can't always control their bias, but you can control how prepared you are to respond. Naomi didn't win that day by raising her voice or matching hostility with hostility. She won because she had the facts, the authority, and the patience to let the truth surface on its own. She understood that composure under pressure is more than a leadership trait, it's a strategy. And in that strategy lies power. Her advice was practical, not abstract. Always know your facts. Document everything. Anticipate resistance and plan for it. When the moment comes, be ready to move with precision, not panic. Most of all, remember that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is delivered calmly, with nothing more than the truth and the confidence to stand by it. For the hospitality industry, her message was simple. Policies mean nothing without the culture to uphold them. For individuals, it was just as clear. You don't have to be a CEO to demand dignity. Whether in a boardroom, a workplace, or a daily interaction, you have the right to be respected, and the responsibility to respect others. Naomi's story became more than a viral moment. It became a reminder that the spaces we enter, whether we own them or not, are shaped by how we act when challenged. You can choose to meet bias with anger, or you can meet it with proof, principle, and the resolve to make sure it never happens again. So the next time someone doubts your place, remember what Naomi Carter proved in that marble lobby. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to know exactly who you are, and never let anyone take that away from you.